Hello and welcome. Okay, so once again, I have unannounced that I'm going to be doing a live Q&A session, and so as always, I'm just going to start talking about things until we get some people who sign on, and then you can ask some questions. So, I'm assuming if you're seeing me right now, you're probably watching this after it's been archived, and so I want to take this time to do a little business. So, in terms of the Master Shamanism course, which is at thunderwizard.com, the Master Shamanism course, we're going in depth into a lot of subjects. And for those of you who are new to the channel, if you're not familiar with what we do on the Master Shamanism course, we start by teaching the very basics of the 9 worlds of the world tree, how you can set up a sacred space within yourself as well as in your environment, how to work with the 9 directions, how the different energies and the different entities work within the 9 directions, and how you can create what I call a thunder wheel, which is a sacred space using all of the 8 directions, including the center, which makes 9. And then there are multiple levels of people who can work with me one-on-one, and I believe it's at the third, starting at the 3rd level, people can work with me minimum once a month. There are other levels, and I only have a couple of people who are on those other levels, but most of the people are at the 2nd and 3rd level. So the 2nd level is that you can get free access to the private videos that I only put on the Master Shamanism course page. And the other, the 3rd level is you get the videos as well as you get to work with me on a one-on-one basis, either by phone or by Skype at least once a month. So I had originally maxed that out and there were no more slots left. Because people have been asking about it, I have opened up a couple more slots. So those should go pretty quickly. So if you've been either thinking or if you weren't able to get into the 3rd level of the subscription level where you work with me personally once a month, there are 2 slots available now. Go on to thunderwizard.com and follow the directions and you can sign up at that level. Or if you're at the $25 level and you want to upgrade, there's a couple of slots left. So I've got a couple other things. Just we're going to get to the what this video is about, which is we're going to talk about how do spiritual masters heal people. What is the mechanism? What is it that's really going on? How is it that these people are able to create healings or somehow are used to help facilitate healings or other kinds of supernatural events. Before I get onto that, I want to share with you some more business. Again, I'm waiting for more people to get on and then you can ask questions. So we do have, besides the Master Shamanism course, I'm also giving 9 world rune readings, and up till I think the middle of or up until July, I believe, up through this month, up until July, I'm going to slash prices and give you a 9 world rune reading for, I don't know how much it is, but I've given a real discount there. A lot of people are really getting a lot out of that. I personally am enjoying doing them because it allows me to look into some things we're going to be talking about today in this video. I'm going to be talking to you about the subconscious and the unconscious mind, and not only from a psychological perspective, but from a spiritual perspective, what these do and how these minds are used in personal healing, in spiritual healing, in doing other kinds of, quote, miracles. So for those of you who are interested in that, I do have that special going on. Of course, I'm still doing the Vedic astrological readings, which are indispensable. Talk to anybody who's had them, they can tell you. These readings, especially if you use the techniques that I give in the readings, it not only helps you to look at, how how you fit into the world and all that. But more importantly, my agenda in that is to give you practical tools which you can use to make your life better right now. I don't care about tomorrow or the next day. I'm really interested in helping you take care of that. You combine the two and you've got something really powerful. So there's something else that I do that I haven't provided an outlet for in terms of a service, which is North Star Shamanic astrological readings. And so those of you who have had Vedic astrological readings from me, I get in depth about how the planets are working in very specific ways and which energies are most available for you and how you can use them for your benefit, for your empowerment. So the North Star acts like a supervisor above the planets. And the North Star, like the 9 worlds, uses the same basic outline. It goes in 9-year cycles. And so you can tell what kind of year you're going to experience on a general level. For instance, if you're going to have a fire year, which is a year where it's going to be really important to express yourself, to let the fire express itself. It's good for romance, it's good for business, it's good for anything having to do with really getting yourself out there. It's also good for standing up for yourself. An earth year would be the opposite, where it's a year of, if you try too hard, you're going to find that not a lot's happening, because this is a year for consolidating. If you're in a year like I am right now, which is every 9th year, you get into the year where all of the other 8 worlds are coming together, then you end up in a year that is very dynamic and very powerful and can be, on all kinds of different levels. Depending on how you go through that year will lay the foundation for the next 9 years, basically the next decade. So I'm creating a package where I'm putting all of these 3 together, and I'm calling it a transformation package. We'll talk more about that. I'll put some videos on it so people know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to combine these 3 services into one package, and I'm going to slash the price very significantly. And for that, you can go to transformation.thunderwizard.com, and you can purchase that there. I'm going to keep that going for the immediate future, but again, these things do tend to pile up pretty quick, and I do get people signing up very quickly, and then I run out of time. And so when I run out of time, I'm going to end that. So take advantage of that now. That's a really great package. Summertime, everything slows down in summertime. My business especially slows down because, people are out with family and out and about, and especially if you don't live in Southern California where it's pretty much summertime all year round, you live in another part of the country, then you really take advantage, and so a lot of business slows down. So this is a way for me to pick things up and to stay busy, but it's an opportunity for you, because then I give great deals on my time, which, as you know, is my most valuable asset. So now let's take a look and see how many people have showed up, and if there are any questions that we can ask. We've got 5 people watching now. Okay, so that's great. All right, so let me just start talking about what it is that we're going to focus on today. So if you are following the channel, then you know that I just recently uploaded 2 videos within the past 24 hours. And let me see, I have to look that up and see what those videos are called. So the first one that I uploaded is called The Free Distance Healing, The Power of Shamanic Gazing. And I did an experiment where I shared with you, as far as you knew in that first video, I shared with you a gift that was given to me by my masters, where through gazing, just through gazing, you can receive your healing on multiple levels. And I asked people to share their experience about what happened. And so some people, thankfully, did go on and did share their experience, which is what this is all about. This is a community give and take. So it really helps when you do that. And then right after I did that video, I did another video, which is called, what is that video called? Let's see. That video is called How Do Spiritual Masters Heal People? What is the true source of healing? So that's what that video is called. And in that video, because I direct people when they watch the first gazing healing video, I direct them to go to the second one, where I tell them I am going to share with them exactly how I achieved that healing, and how you can have that same power, not only to help other people, but more importantly, to help yourself. And that's what this is really about. What I really want to talk about is how we have the power within ourselves to really achieve anything that you can imagine. In this Q&A video today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go even deeper into explaining exactly what I did, how I did it, and what are the mechanisms behind it that gave people whatever their experiences were. And also, by association, I'm going to be sharing with you how other people who do these kinds of things. There are healers out there that just do gazing. There are people who, do with their energy. There are people that do it with chanting, singing. There's Amachi, the hugging saint who hugs people. There's, of course, you've got the faith healers who do all kinds of things. There are multiple things happening here. There is the psychological aspect to it, which we cannot minimize. There is a psychological aspect to all of these so-called kinds of healings. There is a spiritual aspect to it. And then there is the dark side of it, where you have obvious frauds, who are people who are knowingly manipulating people in order to put them into altered states of consciousness, and then they can control them and manipulate them. And these are, ways that this is what cults do. And there's a whole spectrum in between of, you've got something that's purely psychological. For example, a lot of self-help, a lot of affirmations, a lot of, things like tapping, where you tap the little thing and, you change yourself. There's a lot of the things that I do in here which are just purely of a psychological nature, which is really important. Remember that in the past, the shaman, the wizard, was all of these things. He or she was a psychologist and a healer and a prophet and a philosopher, and in some cases mathematician, scientist, herbalist. They were multiple things. Now in today's world, we have them chopped up into little pieces. And so one side will say, yes, well, that's purely spiritual. And then the psychologist will say, well, I can clearly see what's happening on a psychological level. And then, of course, the magician, meaning the fraud, the trickster, the sleight of hand person, can see how people are being actually manipulated. There's some really amazing things out there if you look. I mean, I've looked through some really interesting things that hypnotists can do. And being a martial artist, that one thing I found interesting was that there was a video where a guy was he was letting the audience know that he was going to present himself as this master who had all kinds of supernatural powers. And he went into, I think it was a Wing Chun Kung Fu studio. And these Kung Fu students didn't know who this guy was. Now, having been a martial artist, I can tell you no martial artist is going to walk into a situation like that and wittingly allow themselves to be, hypnotized into thinking something is going on. So what this guy did is he came in and he told people what it was that what he was going to do, and then he had the guy stand in front of him and he did some dramatic movement and then moved his hand. You can't see my hand. Moved his hand like that or something, and this martial artist buckled over in pain. And then asked him what happened, and he talked about how he felt this power come into him and all this stuff. And he says, I didn't do anything. I'm just a hypnotist. I hypnotized you. So it was very embarrassing for that guy, but it was amazing to watch that. So these are the sleight of hand artists that you see that, in situations where you have psychics who supposedly talk to the dead, a lot of times. Now, again, I'm not here to debunk all of that. I have done this kind of work. I continue to do this kind of work. And there are times that there are things that happen that can't be explained. So I'm not trying to debunk everything. But what I really want to get to is to start talking to you about the power of your unconscious mind. Not just your subconscious mind, but your unconscious mind. And so the unconscious mind can be responsible for what we would call psychosomatic healings, psychosomatic experiences, both on a positive and negative. You know, this is the same with a lot of people who experience demon possession. It's psychosomatic. That doesn't mean that it's all in their head. There may actually be a force in their house knocking things over and doing things, but it's psychosomatic, meaning that they have created it. And so there's varying levels. There are people that it is all in their head and they're making things up in their head and think it's real when it's not. And these are the people that we give medication to. And then there are the people who actually are having actual paranormal experiences that they themselves are creating with their unconscious mind. So the unconscious mind is infinite in terms of its power. And I really mean that. It has the power to do everything on multiple levels. Now, if you're watching this, and I'm assuming you want to learn how to become a master shaman, which means that you need to understand the psychology of the human being, not only on the psychological level, but on the spiritual level. And you need to understand how the three minds work. We have, in the northern tradition that I follow, we've got Odin, Vili, and Ve, which represents the third eye, the navel center, and the heart, which represents the higher consciousness, the lower consciousness, meaning the subconscious and the unconscious minds. And then we have the middle, which is waking consciousness, which is our soul, which is who you are. You have to know what these things are on not only a spiritual level and energetic level, but also on a psychological level, and know the varying degrees of what this is. And when you know how to tap into these forces and you know how to use them, you can literally create absolutely anything. So let's see if we've got more people on the channel now. We've got 6 people watching now, so it's we'll see how many people show up. It is a Friday night, beginning of summer, so who knows how many people are available on a Friday night to watch this stuff. So what I'm going to go through again is I'm going to talk you through what I did in those 2 videos. So if you're watching this live, I don't want you to stop and go and watch the videos. Wait until this live broadcast is over, and if you haven't, go back and watch them. If you are watching this after it's been archived and this is recorded and it's not live, feel free to stop this now and go back and watch the videos referring to this. First one is the, what did I call it? The free healing shamanic gazing video. And then right after that, how do spiritual masters heal people? Okay, watch those 2 and then come back. Again, if this is live, don't leave now because you can't pause me. So before I get into it, I'm gonna first see if there's any questions. Oh, a lot of people here so far. Okay, excellent. All right, everybody's here. Thank you. Kay Grace Bear says, my Vedic readings are out of this world. Thank you. I tooting my own horn, it is an amazing science, and I agree with you. I think everybody can benefit from it. Okay, so let's see. You've got some questions here. How is energy vampirism really functioning? What are people doing when they drain your energy? That's a really good question. The short answer to that is they aren't draining you of your energy. What's happening is that you have energetically made a contract with them, and you are allowing them to drain your energy. So this is extremely important. This has to do with every kind of spiritual encounter, whether it be ghosts, demons, other people. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there aren't people out there who, when you get into their aura, you can feel your energy getting drained. I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, but what I am saying is if that continues to happen, it means that you have made a contract with them, that you've either gotten into some kind of a codependent relationship where, because you don't want to hurt their feelings or reject them, even on an unconscious level, you've allowed that to happen. Also, understand when it comes to this that we attract everything into our lives. So if you have spiritual vampires in your life, it means that they're, whether it be karmic or past life, or it be your own unconscious projection, you've attracted them. You know, here's the thing about predators. Predators look for easy prey. They don't go after prey that they can't take down. You know, so, you know, I remember my ex-wife, she was very tiny, you know, she was very petite. But when she went out in public, for whatever reason, she had this attitude that she would adopt, and people would leave her alone. I had this ability as well. I mean, I'm a little different. I mean, I'm a large, muscular, well, I'm not huge, but I mean, you know, big, muscular guy. But I mean, nobody messes with me when I go out in public. And it's because I give out the very clear signal that I'm the last person you want to mess with. So bottom line is that we make that choice. And so then what about the people who say, yeah, but I consciously try to put that up, but I still get all these people who take advantage of me in whatever way it is? Well, that means there's still some unconscious. Unconscious meaning you're not aware of it. That's what's important. Lots of times when I work with people, I'll point out what I see as their unconscious issue, and they'll take it as an attack or a criticism. And it's not. It's just you're not aware of it. So, you know, the best way, you know, when people point out stuff like that in me, if I am in my highest awareness, which I'm as human as everybody else, but if I'm in my highest awareness, I'll say, I'm not aware of that. If that's true, I'm not aware of it, because I am aware that I have unconscious issues as well. I may not know what's going on. So, all right, so that was her question. All right, so getting back to what I did in this video. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and read to you people's experience, because I asked for you to give me your experience of the gazing. So as you know, in the first one, the free distance healing, the power of shamanic gazing, that first video, as far as you knew, I told you that I had this gift that had been given to me by my teachers, and that I had this ability just with the power of gazing that I could heal you on multiple levels. And then I went and explained how this was going to work. I explained what you were likely to experience, or many of the things, and I did a lot other things too, which you may or may not have caught. But that's how I started doing it. I explained to you what to experience, and then I did the gazing. And then I directed people to come to the next video, which was how do spiritual masters heal people, and then I explained a lot of other things. So here is some of the people's responses, and this is important to see because you'll see that there are some very different ones. So the first one I see here is CEO Alios TM. He responded, I saw you in my dreams before you made this video. The way the stare was the same in the dream. So for him, he had dreamt of this experience. So for him, it probably felt like there was some kind of karmic connection that was drawing him to that video. Okay, so that's what he saw. Saeed said, right before you began, I closed my eyes to get ready. Wasn't really expecting you to per se to be standing so close to the camera. So when I opened them, his eyes, I was stunned at first by the image and started to laugh. I laugh too when I look at myself. After a while staring back, the laughter and sense of humor went away, and with the music I started to feel peace, serenity. I don't know, it felt like I got to know you personally without talking. I'm not sure how to describe the feeling afterwards, but I did felt a sense of cleansing. Okay, so that was his experience. Renee Michelle, by the way, thank you for all of you sharing your experience, and I hope it's okay with you that I share publicly. I mean, you put it in the comments, so I'm assuming. So Renee Michelle says, at first I started to giggle, but I felt the energy going through my head and the back of my heart. So no matter how odd, you are powerful beyond measure, Master Denny. The feeling of life force energy is undeniable and very real. Thank you. So that was Renee's personal experience. Let's see if there's others. Svensson said, I could not help but think or feel a general sense of mirth, as though there was a slight grin on your face, which there was, playing at the corners of your mouth. Not that you physically were per se, but that was the impression I felt. Well, that's true, because I was feeling a little bit mirthful at the moment. So now, I don't know what other people's experience were. You know, there's all kinds of other things that go into it too, which I'll explain later. I'll show you how just the image of the person can have a strong effect. So those were your experiences, okay? Now, let me go down the road of what you're going to hear from the average healer. They're going to say that they, who knows what they could say. They could say all kinds of things. They could say that they have a power and there's a power that flows through them. If it's a, let's say, a religious healer, they're going to say the power of God was flowing through me and gave you what you needed. If it's somebody who wants to be more of an avatar, they're going to say, I could feel what was happening with you and I put my heart and my soul and my spirit into you. If it's an energy healer or a Reiki healer, you're going to say something along the lines of, I was simply the conduit through which the universe gave you what you needed. And then somebody might say something along the lines, again, it's a big spectrum. You could say something which might sound more like a psychological perspective, which is, I'm just the conduit. You're here. You're going to get what you need from the universe. So you can imagine, I could say just about anything at that point. If you had an actual experience, then, I could say that. And what about if you didn't have an experience? I have no doubt that there are many, if not most, who didn't have an experience at all. Then I could say, well, that's okay. It happened on a subtle level. It happened on an unconscious level that you weren't aware of. And so, and this is, again, I gave that suggestion at the end that, watch what happens over the coming weeks. Now, before I go any further, I want to say everything I said in that video, I believe in. And I believe in what I said, that if people chose to have that experience with me and chose to do that exercise with me, I believe that that could be the beginning of a major transformation with them. So I'm not trying to take that away. But I still need to tell you what is really going on. And let me just also say, I may not even know what is really going on. So let me just give the reality that there may be something happening that I'm not aware of. I know this happens in a lot of other ways too. The way, I know this, again, a lot of this I've experienced as a spiritual teacher, where people will have these really intense experiences with me, and I will literally be thinking about, how I need to clean out my closet, or, how I need to go, go to the store and get some toilet paper, and they're having this really intense experience, and people see me as something that I don't experience as myself. Who's right and who's wrong? Both and neither. We live in this holographic universe. So, having said that, I want to stay open to any and every possibility, because what I'm trying to get at is that we actually do have the power to not only change everything, but to heal ourselves. And this is part of the process, to be completely disease-free and also be happy and successful, and even beyond, experience states of spiritual power beyond what we can understand. Now, let me tell you what I did. So I promised in that first video that I would tell people how I did this. And then in the second video, I said I did absolutely nothing. That all I did was simply empty my mind and look into the camera. I tried another experiment. I did another one beforehand, and I tried actually projecting, feelings of love and peace and serenity, and it looked ridiculous to me anyway. I mean, my eyebrows were doing weird things, and yeah, my eyes were getting kind of misty, but it distracted me. So I went back and I just did nothing, and I actually just emptied my mind and just looked directly in the camera. And that worked better. I believe that worked better because here's the deal. It is our unconscious mind that creates everything. And I'm not just talking about this from a psychological perspective. I'm not talking about, pop psychology, where you are what you think, meaning you're either a success or you're a failure. I believe that, but that's just surfacey pop psychology nonsense. I mean that you really are able to project beyond what you can imagine. Anything that you can imagine and beyond, you have this ability. And you are so powerful that everything that you have in your life is your own creation, including this coffee cup right here, even though I have tea in it, you know, whatever it is, these batteries, the state of my body, the state of my mind, my health, where I live, how I live, the people in my life, everything is my own creation, and yours too. And it is created in the unconscious mind. The subconscious mind, as I understand it today, is the subconscious mind is the lens of the projector. The projector itself is the unconscious. So again, we have to talk about the three minds. We have three minds. We have, well, we probably have more than that, but for the sake of this video, we have three minds. We have the conscious mind, the unconscious, and the subconscious, which are one, the lower self, the middle self, the conscious self, the lower self, and the higher self. And the higher self would be up in these areas here, which has to do with the third eye, the pineal, and the pituitary gland. Anybody who's done any research in power plants know that the pineal and the pituitary gland are extremely important in terms of visions, psychic visions. We have a strong connection to our third eye. But the pineal, as you know, is the master gland. It controls all of the glands in the body for all kinds of health. So not just from a spiritual perspective. And then we have the lower self, which is in the navel center, which is the unconscious and the subconscious. And this is the powerhouse, the lower self. The lower self is what creates everything. And I've talked about this in other videos about how unless we have the three minds aligned, we're not going to be able to forget about being powerful as shamans. We're not even going to be able to have successful lives. Our lives are going to be filled with chaos. So going back to, again, if now we have 7 people watching. So if you're just tuning into this, we're talking about how spiritual healers actually create healing. And there are 2 videos that I've done. One where I did some gazing. It's called Free Shamanic Gazing. And then I did one answering this question, but I'm going to go more in depth. What I talked about again in that second video was that I said that I'm the one that did it. That, excuse me, what am I saying? Take that back. What I said in that video, Freudian slip, sorry about that. What I said in that second video was that I didn't do anything. That I simply showed up and I looked into the camera and thought and felt nothing. And so all of these experiences that I've just read to you of people having personal experiences where they felt something in their body, or they felt an emotional connection, or the first guy who said he saw me in a dream, those kinds of things, that is their projection onto me. They were projecting that onto me. And so you can see from a psychological perspective, we could go down that route and just go, oh, it's just you projecting. But I want to focus on it's even more than that. Because what if somebody looks at that video and actually has a cleansing or a healing? Let's say somebody watches that and heals themselves of some life-threatening, incurable illness. I am totally open to that possibility. I've seen that kind of stuff happen before. I would still say the same thing. I would still say, I did nothing. You projected onto me your healing. So now I'm going to get into it even more. I'm going to go a little bit deeper because I did some other things in that video. So because I'm an actor and because I've been a filmmaker, I know how you can manipulate the audience's experience through things like the camera, editing, music, and you know, a good actor also knows how to have that kind of relationship with the camera. I talked about that in that video. And I talked to you about how Anthony Hopkins is brilliant at this. That if you look at his most powerful scenes, he's doing nothing. He's looking, you know, sometimes he'll be just right on the other side of the camera and he will just be looking and he won't be moving his eyes. See, if I go like this and I move my eyes around and I blink, right, that's going to distract you. But if I just stare and I don't blink and I don't move my eyes around, and if I start to talk in a low voice, You can project whatever you want on me. I can say, you're the most amazing person I ever met. So it's a love scene. Or I can say, I'm the devil, I'm going to suck your heart out of your body. You are going to project onto that emptiness, whatever it is, whether it's fear or love or happiness, you're going to project that onto that if I'm truly being empty. Now, of course, my looks and the camera and everything else will do it. But I did a couple other things in that video which you may or may not have caught on. Obviously, from the beginning, I had very trance-inducing, spiritual-sounding music. That I picked that music because if you just listen to that music, it will start to put you into trance. In fact, I've used it numerous times when I've created, CDs for myself when I want to give myself suggestions or use them for shamanic visioning or something like that. I will use that very track because I know that it puts you in a shamanic state. I did the technique which I told you about, which is what I just looked directly into the camera and thought nothing and just tried to be as neutral as possible. And then what you might not have noticed, maybe you did, is that I used some editing in that where I used the Ken Burns effect, where over the period of the time that I was gazing, the camera was very slowly and imperceptibly zooming in on me. So that's going to give you the impression that I'm becoming larger than life. And you're going to have this feeling with the music. And the flute music I put in there, it's very, it's my music. I love listening to it. And I know it's touched a lot of people when they listen to it. So again, you put all those things together and I'm crafting and manipulating an experience. My goal was to give you an experience of having a feeling of being loved, of feeling good, positive, sort of bittersweet emotions. That's what I was going for with all of that. Now, I could very easily have changed that. And it would be interesting to see that. In fact, I've done this before when I've edited. You just have somebody sitting there looking. All you have to do is change the music. If it is upbeat and they're looking out over the ocean, then you have this feeling and you ask people, what was he thinking? Oh, he was thinking about how he's going to win the Olympic medal or something like that. You take the same music and you put some very sad violins and you have somebody staring out over the ocean. What was he thinking of? Oh, he was thinking about his girlfriend who died in a car accident and he's mourning the loss. So you see, we project what we want to project. So I'm not trying to minimize that. This is what I'm trying to get to as a shaman. On a psychological level, all that is true, but the other side of it is that this is a gateway to actually creating infinity, actually to create miracles. So if somebody wanted, listen, if you want to, you can go and experiment with this. Now that you know what it is that I'm doing with that video, go back and watch it. And this time have a very clear intent. And this will give you an idea of what's going on in your unconscious. There was, I forget which Renee it was. In the other video, the other Renee, there's two Renees. There's Renee Michelle and Renee Petronovich, I think her name is, her last name. Renee, the other Renee, when she watched it, she got so uncomfortable she had to turn it off. So... It had such an intense impact on her. So you see what I mean? It's like we bring whatever's with us. Now, she's now wondering, well, what's wrong with me? And I'm saying, listen, it's your unconscious mind. Don't take any of it too seriously. But now go back and see if you can decide how you want to experience that. Do you want to have that be that the universe through that is going to tell you your deepest secret, is going to tell you your highest destiny, is going to give you the power to heal yourself. I mean, if we know how to tap into this power that we have, we can accomplish anything. I mean, people can heal themselves. It's not just psychosomatic, meaning, it could be just psychosomatic, meaning that, for instance, somebody goes to one of these, let's say a healing seminar where somebody's going to do something like this, and they have a pain in their joint and they want it to be healed. And then you hear them talk about, during the healing session, I felt all this warmth going to my elbow. Well, that could be psychosomatic, meaning that, of course, you're thinking about it and your brain has the ability to increase the blood flow to the wounded area, and you may have this feeling like you're getting healed, and then you find out a week later that nothing happened. That's a whole other thing called TMS, which we could talk about another time. But it could also be that somebody could go there and actually have a complete healing. I mean, there's documented cases of people being healed in such instances. So what is the difference? I'm saying that the difference isn't that one of them went to a fraudulent healer and one of them went to the real thing where a true healer healed them. Maybe they did, I don't know. I'm still saying, even no matter what the case is, they themselves created the environment for their own healing and they chose to be healed. That's the way it works. And so I think the downside of this is that there are people out there who do this for a living and they take the credit for it. And I wrestled with this because when I first started putting this together, it was a result of somebody sharing a link with me about a healer, and I went and researched it, and there was supposed to be this live healing that happened, and I turned it on and nothing happened to me, but it was very clear to me what he was doing, whether he knew it or not, and why it was having the effect that it was having. And I had no problem with the fact that people are getting healed from it. The problem that I had is that he took credit for it. That's the problem I have with it. And the reason why I have a problem with that is not because I don't think that there aren't people who have abilities and who don't have destinies, and that all of us have these kinds of abilities. The problem that I have with that is that I think ultimately it is destructive, because then those people are going to be dependent upon this human being. And they're going to see themselves as inferior or that person as superior. And what ends up happening with people like this who may or may not have ability, but for whatever reason have been put in a situation where they're seen as having ability, then they tend to be surrounded by people who then continue to project that onto them. You're a healer, you're something, you're blah, blah, blah. It happens to me all the time, and it's interesting because, listen, when I'm not with my students, I'm just a normal person. That's all I'm interested in being out in the world. If you were to meet me on the street, you would never know that I do this kind of stuff unless you got to know me. And even then, I wouldn't say anything about myself in any way. And as you know, I don't do that now. But if somebody works with me, especially like if I'm teaching them spirit fighting, and I'm teaching them how to tap into, certain techniques which brings all kinds of energy, or the qigong, or if I actually put energy into them, which again is nothing special, it's just life force energy. It doesn't mean that I'm anything. It's just like, Arnold Schwarzenegger has big muscles because he lifts weights. Doesn't make him anything more than human. Same with me or anybody else. If somebody is an energy worker and they have energy that they can put through their hands, it just means that they work at it. That's all. It's a natural thing like anything else. They are no superior or inferior. And so I think it's destructive when people, for whatever reason, have the ability to either channel real energy or for some reason allow people an experience where they can project onto the healer their own healing. If they allow themselves to either be directly or indirectly seen as some kind of avatar or healer or spiritual master, I think that is incredibly destructive, because they're not the ones that did it. Meaning the healers. The people in the audience did it. So I shared with you bit by bit. Again, we've got new people coming on, so you may have to watch this from the beginning after it's been archived, so I'm looking at this because I see 10 watching as though you're seeing me, and this is how you see me. You may have to go back and watch it after it's been recorded. So you get my point, right? So I appreciate those of you who participated in this and shared with me your experience. I don't want to take your experience away unless it was unpleasant. But what I do want to say is that it really was you that did it. You have this power. You have this power to intend that. So anyway, so let me see if there's any other questions here before I move on. Renee Michelle asks, how do we make sure these three are aligned? She's responding to something I said earlier about the three selves. And what I was saying, you've heard me say this before, but what I was saying is the three selves, we have the higher self, we have the lower self, I'm touching my navel, we have the middle self, which is the soul and the heart center. And these three souls, they're actually separate beings, they're separate souls that live within us. They communicate with each other, and when the alignment is there and when they're communicating, then we are able to not only have health and happiness and fulfillment, and not only that, but we're able to manifest these kinds of things. We're actually able to go beyond the physical, and we're able to manifest things in a spiritual way, because the truth of the matter is you are a spiritual being and you've created everything in the universe, everything including me. I'm sitting here talking to you. You created me. You had a hand in that. That's how powerful you are. So how do we make sure these three are aligned? Well, the first thing you do is you don't judge yourself. If you don't feel aligned, that's okay. Feelings are just means that you're alive. It's like you go to the gym and you lift weights and you're breathing hard and your muscles are straining. It doesn't bother you because you know you were going to go in there to do something like that, to push yourself, and it was going to hurt and it was going to burn, and that's what you wanted to have happen. But when we go through life, we don't realize that that is also what's happening. So even when we're in a state where we are really evolving and growing, we may feel a lot of discomfort. So don't let the feelings get you down. Don't let the feelings of whatever you may have, whether it's happiness or sadness or craziness or intensity or whatever, don't let that get in your way. First thing is, how do you make sure you're aligned? Don't take your feelings as anything other than you're just having a feeling right now. Second thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the lower self, where the subconscious and the unconscious minds reside, where our dwarves reside, we want the dwarves to have a direct connection to the elves. Who are elves? The ascended masters. The way that we connect with that is through our higher self. So the recipe goes like this. Energy comes to us from higher realms containing wisdom and containing guidance. This is then sent directly not to the middle self, but it's sent to the lower self. It's sent to the unconscious mind. And when the unconscious mind is receiving information from the higher self or the higher realms, it automatically gets aligned, because what you're going to become aligned to is your internal destiny. It's your pre-programmed destiny that's only for you. It's not, this is where religion gets it wrong. The 10 commandments or the 9 noble virtues or whatever it is. Yeah, that stuff is great, but that's not you. You have your own internal origin law, your destiny. And this is something that you have brought with you from your previous existence. You brought it with you and you crafted it. As a soul, you crafted what your soul purpose was, and you put in there in the program something to let you know how you're aligned. When you follow that gives you joy, when you experience joy, that's the sign that you're following your internal programming. That's how you know. If you're in a dead-end job and you hate it, and you feel like you're dying in there, that's your soul saying, this isn't what I'm supposed to do. I don't like it here. But we live in this society that says, no, stiff upper lip, carry your cross, you've got to be, whatever it is, whatever BS nonsense that your brain is telling you you're supposed to do. None of this means that you aren't supposed to be disciplined. It's going to take a tremendous amount of discipline to stay aligned, because the first thing that's going to happen when you start to act on your soul desire is that all of your resistance is going to come up, whether that's laziness or whether that's fear or whether that's whatever it is. There's all kinds of things that are going to come up that you are going to reflect in your external environment, like people, parents, jobs, bosses, all that kind of stuff. All that kind of stuff is going to come in, and it's going to try to distract you from following that internal programming, which is your soul desire. So I'm not saying, some people say, a lot of people who aren't familiar with my work and they come onto some of my stuff and they comment things like, it's not going to go away just because you think positively. No, you're right. It's not going to go away. What is going to happen is that you are going to be forced to deal with all of your unconscious, unresolved issues, which are directly connected with you resisting your internal programming, your spiritual center, your soul desire, the thing that gives you true joy. So that's the game. That's the video game. Video games aren't any fun unless there's resistance and you have to fight past all the goblins to get to the treasure. So it wouldn't be any fun for us to incarnate if then we were going to have it easy. We make it difficult, meaning we go up against our fears. That's the fun part. That's where we grow. That's like going to the gym and lifting the weight and your bicep is burning, and you're doing that on purpose because you want a bigger bicep. You want to be stronger, whatever it is. Darwin Marshall, I'm not sure if you're too familiar with my my channel. Everybody's welcome here. The Q&A is for questions and answers. It's not for you to promote your videos. Okay, so that I'd prefer you didn't do that. I'd prefer that you listen. By the way, while I'm on the subject, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but anybody else maybe after this gets archived, if you're listening. The way to best get interaction with me is to ask me a question. A lot of people sometimes will come on these Q&As and they will, they'll put out a statement, and thinking that they're, understandably thinking that this is a place to have a dialogue. And then what ends up happening is that I will pick apart what they've said. And I don't do that to attack them. It's because they may be saying exactly the opposite or giving me an example of exactly what I'm trying to teach through or past. So that's the best way to communicate. You can ask me a question and then you'll know where I stand. But, again, sometimes the racialists will come on here and they'll want to argue with me about, where we came from. We didn't come out of Africa. Somehow white people sort of floated out of the sky or whatever it is. And I'm going to, oppose that, and then people get their feelings hurt. So you can avoid that simply by asking, what is my view on out of Africa? And then I'll tell you, and then you can decide one way or another. But it's helpful to me because if you ask me a question, then I can really help you. So anyway, we're getting up till an hour already. I can't believe it. And I'm still struggling with, do I want to talk about this other healer, the thing that got me started on this? I'm wondering if I want to talk about him, because what I want to do is I want to show you exactly what I think is happening with this guy. I don't think I'm going to do that this time because I'm not completely sure about why I'm doing it, and I don't want to, destroy somebody's fantasy about it. So I'm not going to. What I do want to say is that, again, let's recap for those of you who are just coming on. What I'm doing in this video is I am talking about where the source of true healing comes from, where the true source of any empowerment comes from. And in the 2 videos that I just uploaded, I uploaded the free healing shamanic gazing video. And I told you that I had a gift where I was going to gaze into the camera, and if you locked eyes with me, that I would heal you. And then people left their experiences. Most people had positive experiences. Some people had some physical sensations, and at least one person had a very negative experience. And I'm laughing because, I love that, because what's really happening is that whatever happened to you is you. We need to understand that with our unconscious mind, we project onto the world. So paranoid people, maybe I said this earlier, or people like, let's say people who are thieves. Again, I could talk about a very public figure, but I won't, because I don't want to cause any controversy. But let's say there's somebody who is a thief, and they accuse other people of theft all the time. And if you listen to them, they really believe it. They believe honestly that people are trying to steal from them all the time. Well, that's called projection. It means that on an unconscious level, they know that they're a thief, and they are projecting onto other people what's going on in their unconscious. That's just a really superficial explanation. This is what happens when we are healed by healers. When you are ready to be healed, when you have made that decision in your unconscious mind, that person is merely the object that you project your healing onto. And then you get that. But it's you. You are the one that heals yourself. You have a vision of God. You have a vision. It's you that does it. You know, there was a teacher, Yogi Bhajan, if you're familiar with Yogi Bhajan. He's passed now. He was the man who brought his brand of Kundalini yoga. Very influential yoga teacher. I learned a lot from his teachings, and I still practice a lot of those things, and I teach a lot of the things that he taught. He was a genius. He was also a cult leader, and he was a fraud, and he did a lot of horrible things and ripped people off and sexually abused people and all kinds of horrible things that some people are still recovering from. But he used to do the very typical East Indian practice, the Hindu practice, which is he would tell his students to have a picture of him on their altar, so that when they did their chants every morning, they would also be worshiping the Guru. And he talks about this one experience where one of his students came to him and said, showed up and did something. I can't remember what it was. Let's just say that she came and brought a bunch of sandwiches that she had made, and starts piling up these sandwiches in front of him. Again, I don't remember what it was, but it was something like that. And he's looking at her and he's like, "What are you doing?" And she said, "You told me to do this." He said, "I didn't tell you to do that." She said, "Oh, yes, you did. I've got your picture on my altar, and you talk to me every day, and you told me to come and bring this. I remember. It's okay, Guru, you did it." And he's like, he took her aside and he said, "I didn't do that." So she was projecting onto him, onto that picture, what she wanted. She wanted that close interaction. She wanted so badly to connect with the Guru that she projected on him that he was talking to her when he wasn't. So that's an example of how projection can work against us. But projection can work for us. And if we understand that we are projectors, that we project everything, including the entire universe, you have projected that. Now, this is why, going back to Renee Michelle's question, how do we make sure these three selves are aligned, the upper, the lower, and the middle self? How do we make sure that they're aligned? I've already explained that. It will naturally do that. This is what meditation does, by the way. Whether it be mantra meditation or stillness meditation or qigong work or tai chi, all of these things naturally align the three selves. And what we want is we want the lower self to be cleansed. So I use the word cleansing very specifically. I specifically chose the word cleansing because this is what we want most. In order to get to that place of being fully divine, of being God or whatever it is, what we want most is to have the lower self cleaned. This is why Zen meditation, they're cleaning the mirror. The thoughts come up, they let them go. The thoughts come up, they let them go. By the way, while I'm on the subject, when I was talking about spiritual teachers, and what I find so destructive is when spiritual teachers either directly or indirectly allow themselves to be seen as something more than human or somehow superior to other people, how destructive that is to people's ability to create within themselves their own ability to become divine. The Buddhist tradition has a saying, many of you have heard it, which goes like this: if you see Buddha by the side of the road, kill him. Right? If you haven't heard that, I shared that with somebody that hadn't heard it. That's what they say in Buddhism. And the reason why they say that is for that very reason, because Buddha is the object of our projection of perfection. And the Buddhist is trying to not just follow the teachings of the Buddha, they are trying to become the Buddha. And so when they see Buddha on the road, if it was really Buddha, then they're going to be distracted from becoming Buddha themselves, and they're going to want to worship him. So that's why they say, if you see Buddha on the side of the road, kill him, because he's not helping you. If he's distracting you from you seeing yourself as becoming Buddha, then it's ultimately self-destructive. Okay? So that's what I'm saying. That's why, anyway, again, I really want to talk about this other guy and how exactly I want to take apart exactly what he did. But instead, I made my video. So again, what I did, if you go back and watch it now, knowing what I did, I'll tell you, I'll go through it step by step. As you know, my demeanor was very different. And somebody mentioned that. They said, your demeanor was different. I wasn't sure that it was you. Well, that was because I was playing the part of the spiritual healer, but I was also employing things that would help to put people into a shamanic trance, or what we could say, hypnotize them, put them in a hypnotic trance, make them more suggestible. So I spoke differently, and as you know, I measured how I spoke, and my hands moved like this in sort of repetitive motions, and the way that I talked, that with the music underneath is going to automatically put you into a hypnotic state. Again, how many of these healing seminars have you gone to when you walk in? From the moment you walk in, the lights are set just right. There might be something on stage, like a painting or an object or something that's lit that takes your focus. And then there's this music that's going on underneath. And the temperature might be just right. It's already setting you up. On top of that, what I started to do is I started to tell you what to expect. I told you that you were going to start to feel your blood flowing through you. You were going to feel your heart beating. I talked about breathing a lot. I told you that you might start to feel some warmth or some tingling. I told you you might feel some warmth around your heart center. I was giving you a suggestion about what to experience. I also left it open, and I said, whatever happens, let it come up. Because, again, I'm smart enough to know that there might be something in your unconscious that might be totally different from that, whether it's positive or negative. But I wanted you to, at the very least, feel like I was doing something to you. And then I started to give a feeling of anticipation. As you noticed, it was like 2 or 3 times you felt like I was just about to start the gazing, and then I would, keep dragging it out, keep teasing it. And then towards the very end, I said, are you ready? Are you ready to completely change on every level of your body and all that? I was getting you worked up, and you are already, being led into it. Now imagine you're in a room filled with people, all of whom have a deep, intense agenda for themselves. They want to be healed. They want to find God. They want to be relieved of sadness. They want their marriage back. They want to make money. They want to be a success. They want whatever it is. You got a room full of people with that energy is going to be involved, and you've got, this is why they do this. This is why they pack you into small rooms, and they get the music playing and all of that, so that they can get you into a more hypnotic state of mind. Then as I told you, I changed the music, And the music is my flute music, which is I love listening to, which has kind of a bittersweet quality. It's very, to me anyway, sounds very hopeful and very beautiful, and at the same time kind of sad. And we respond to sadness. So I wanted to have that in there, and then I slowly used the Ken Burns technique to have the camera slowly zoom in on me, and hopefully it was imperceptible. You didn't know it was happening. But even that, having my face zoom in towards you, is going to put you into a hypnotic state and make you feel like I'm getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then at the end, I told you what to expect. I gave you a post-hypnotic suggestion, and I said, over the next coming weeks and days, even if you didn't feel anything, these things are going to happen for you. And again, it could all be true. This is what's amazing about it. It could all be true. And I don't want to take that away. But what I was doing as a teacher, those of you who may have picked up on there was a little bit of mirth, and you may have felt that I was kind of playing a part and that I was enjoying it, was that on the one hand, I really wanted to give you an experience and give you a healing if you needed that. And at the same time, what I was looking forward to was telling you how I didn't do it, you did it, and here's how I manipulated you into believing that I did it so that you could give yourself permission to do it for yourself. Because, again, if you have somebody who's super skeptical and they walk into these things and they're not going to see anything, they're going to go, nothing happened to me. Or if some people who are skeptical consciously, but on an unconscious level, they really want to believe. And then they'll go, I came in as a skeptic, but now I'm a believer. It all comes back to your unconscious mind. And so as shamans, we want to master the unconscious mind. When you can master, when you know that this is a tool that you can use to not only master your life and have happiness, but to go beyond that, to become divine, to become supernatural, if that is what brings you the greatest joy. That if we understand that, we can learn how to create. I'm gonna end with a story that you may have heard about. If not, I'm sure you can look it up. It's a story about a Huna master, H-U-N-A, which is the Hawaiian shamanism. I forget the guy's name. He's a Japanese guy. Somebody knows it. Go ahead and type it on there. Japanese guy who became a Huna master. And the story, as I understand it, is that before he became a Huna master, he was a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I don't remember which. And there was an insane asylum here. I believe it was in Northern California. Again, I'm just going off of my memory. I may not remember all of the details, but this is how I remember it. An insane asylum with the worst cases. I mean, we're talking about people who, they're so violent that they need to be chained up because if they can, they'll tear your face off or bite your neck or, throw feces at you or just awful, horrible things. And so they just weren't getting anywhere with all of these patients. And so they contacted this man, I forget his name, doctor or whatever his name is. And they said, we're desperate. We heard that you can help. Can you help us? And he said, yes. And they said, great. When can you be here? Because he was in Hawaii, they're in California. And he says, oh, I'm not coming there. And they said, well, how are you gonna treat the patients? He said, just send me their files. And they said, how can that possibly? He said, this is how I want to do it. You asked for my help. Send me the files. So they're desperate. They sent him the files and hired him and have no idea. And sure enough, I don't know what the time period was, but over whatever period of time, these patients magically started getting better. So much so that at least some of them were released back into society, these incurables. And so they asked him, what did you do? And how did you heal them? He said, I didn't heal them. What? He said, I didn't heal them, I healed myself. Because the Huna perspective is that everything is you. You project everything. Everything comes out of you. Everything, every person, every situation is your own projection, your own creation. And so he calls what I call the lower self, what I call patterns in the unconscious mind, he calls data. I believe he calls it the lower self too. but he calls it data, like data on your hard drive. And he refers to it in ways that remind me of, broken data on your hard drive. When you defrag your hard drive, you're getting rid of the bad data in there. He refers to it like that. And he says, I'm just healing the bad data within myself. And so his technique is that he would look at the person's file, and he'd open it up, and he'd either look at the picture or he'd read something, or read whatever a doctor had written, and yeah, patient so-and-so bites people and throws his feces on the wall, and then he'd close it shut. Because if he had an emotional reaction to it that had any kind of judgment to it, he would stop, and then he would say, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. I forget what the entire thing is. And then they'd say, oh, so you were healing him. And he said, no, I was healing myself. That's my bad data. If I see him that way, that's my projection. I've created him that way. So I want to change the data within myself. He's not interested in what the other guy out there is doing. He's only interested in changing within himself how he sees this person. Because he knows that that person is a child of God, or however you want to look at it, and he wants to see him in that perfect light. Now, this is different from denial. This is different from you're married to your partner who's a drug addict and a pedophile or whatever they are, and you're saying, he's a child of God and I love him and they're perfect in God's eyes. And that's not what's happening here. That's denial. He's actually changing within himself the bad data that causes him to judge others. That's all he's trying to fix. As it so happens, the other people get healed. Now, he is so convinced of this that then we could talk about his belief coming into it, because for him, he knows if he changes the inside, the outside is going to match it. And so then they naturally get healed. So that sounds unbelievable. I mean, I sit here right now and I confess to you, I have doubts as to my ability to be able to do something like that, but I know from experience, when I have allowed myself to do that in my life, it's unbelievable. And there have been people in my lives on a much lower level who have said, you're not human. And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, 2 weeks ago, you just said out loud what you wanted. I want X, Y, and Z. And then you haven't said anything since. And now all of a sudden you have it. And there's no way you could have had it, gotten it. And now you have it. And I go, oh. And I realized that I do that. And then that was what dawned on me, that I'm actually learning how to do this. I must be doing something right. I'm cleaning up my data so that I'm able to simply project. And that's the goal. The final goal of all this work is that we get to the place where, without any effort, we simply project from our unconscious through our subconscious lens. We project what we want based on being in alignment with our three selves. Okay? So, does that make any sense? Anyway, so that's my message for today. So watch those videos. Go ahead and watch those videos, the free healing shamanic gazing, and then the how do spiritual masters heal people. And you'll see, now that you know that I was consciously manipulating you to have an experience, you'll see what I did. But know that all of that means nothing. Even all of my manipulative techniques really means nothing. It is possible, I want to say that it is still possible that there could be powers, entities that work through me. It could be that I have an ability that I haven't consciously made myself aware of yet. But I want you to also know that it is you who has this ability. And that anything outside of you, whether that be a person or a deity or anything else, is really just a tool for you to realize within yourself that you are the source of everything. And once we get to that point, then here's a practical reality of this, and this is why I think this is so important. We get to choose what we want. So, if somebody is miserable, That's a choice that they've made. And when I talk like this, especially when I talk about healing and disease, and I talk about disease that way, that's a choice. People get hurt and upset, and I understand it. And they say it's more complicated than that. And they want to create this whole drama of, that there's some unknown play that God wants to play out. Like Job, we don't know why we live the way that we do, but, God has a purpose, and there was a purpose for your illness, and I learned something from it. All of that is true. There's nothing untrue about that. But I choose not to live in that kind of an arbitrary universe. That doesn't mean that I don't live in a state of surrender, because I do. I seek to live in a state where I am surrendered to the power of the flow of energy of the universe, that I am dependent upon it, that I am simultaneously dependent upon that energy, and at the same time I am the master of it. This again is something that Carlos Castaneda taught. Even though he's a fraud, he didn't fulfill what he taught. He taught and explained it beautifully, that there's this mystery of how we can be completely dependent and surrendered to this infinite power, and at the same time be the master of it. This is what I want to be. This is what I choose to do. This is how I want to live my life. And the reason is for one reason only. I want to enjoy my life. I want to be happy. None of this means anything if you're not enjoying your life. I'm not saying you can't have difficulties. I've got some major challenges going on in my life, and some days I'm bawling my eyes out. So I'm not saying that there aren't difficulties in life. I'm saying that this life is meaningless if we don't make the decision that we are going to stop at nothing in order to have absolutely everything that we want, that is in our deepest soul, to bring us fulfillment. How do you know you're following your deepest soul desire? If it brings you that feeling of fulfillment. People ask me, well, how do you know you're not just indulging in some pleasure, like, eating a tub of ice cream or, injecting heroin in your neck or something like that? I say, because that doesn't bring you joy. That's how you know. Afterwards, you're not feeling joy. You're feeling a lot of regret and a lot of pain. And if you're following your deepest joy, yes, you're going to have that challenge of running into your fear and resistance. But you're going to have that feeling inside of you that people say is God. I can feel God inside of me. It's you. It's your soul that is happy, that's experiencing itself. Religious people might say that, God lives in my heart, and so therefore I want to live my life in a sacred way so that God can have a good experience living in my heart. That's almost there. That's a good way of looking at it, but go one step further. It's not God living in you. You're God, and you're living here in this world that we've created. And it's your responsibility to yourself to have as much fun as you can possibly have as much love and fulfillment as you can possibly have. And when you do that, then you are God. Anyway, so that's the point of all this. It's not just about getting a bunch of magic and being able to do all kinds of miraculous stuff, which can happen. I've done it. I've seen it happen. It's totally possible. But I've also seen people with huge energy, with tons of power, that you wouldn't believe the things that they could do, and they were miserable. And some made themselves physically ill. They were supposed to master, spiritual masters, and they made themselves sick with cancer or heart disease or whatever it was. So I don't want that. I want to be happy. I want to look back on my life and say to myself, do I regret anything? Was there something I didn't do? And I want to say, no, I did everything. I took all the risks. I jumped all off the cliffs. I did everything I wanted, which goes back to the idea of dying in battle. That's what our ancestors meant when they said, if you die in battle, you go to Valhalla. It means that you lived your life fearlessly and did everything you wanted to do. And when you do that, everybody will be benefited. Everybody in your life. In fact, the whole universe will be benefited if you do that. We'll all bump up another level if you do that. And the great thing is, the only thing you have to do is focus on what makes you happy. If you do that, everything else will fall into place. And that's the exact opposite of what religion teaches. Religion teaches you have to throw yourself away. You're evil. You're bad. You get away of yourself. You know, the self is bad. Get rid of that and focus on God and give your life to God and you carry your cross and blah, blah, blah. I'm saying the exact opposite. You are God. You want to worship God? Worship yourself. And then you get to be in that place where you have humility, because you can't be in a place where you are surrendered to the life force energy and be full of pride. You can't. You have to be humble. But at the same time, then you get to be the master of it. And so there's that whole dance, and that's a whole other topic. Take a long time to talk about. Anyway, so we're, an hour and 20 minutes in. I don't see any other questions. Okay, Grace Bears talks about Kahuna. Ka is light and Huna is shaman. So I guess that means that Kahuna means shaman of light. Works for me. K. Grace Bear says, as we change the bad data within us to free ourselves from painful perceptions, should we do this process alone or should we call upon support team of spirit guides? Spirit guides, deities, powers are all here to help us. And ultimately, again, if we go back to, the Huna understanding, they're all you anyway. So you're only calling upon aspects of yourself. So if you want to, if you feel the desire to do that, do it. Absolutely. I mean, for those that have taken an astrological reading from me, you know that one of the things I focus on is to give you connection to the deities that vibrate with you the best. I give you the mantras, the sound vibrations that you vibrate with the best. Your spiritual name is about getting that one syllable that vibrates your mind on its own personal highest level just for you. So use they're all here. They're all tools here making themselves available to you. Absolutely, you should use them. If you feel you want to do it by yourself, do it. But, if you're asking that, it sounds like maybe you want to do that. Absolutely. So while I'm on it, I'm going to do a little business here. I've got multiple things going on which I want to share with you. I talked about it in the beginning, but if you weren't on, you might not have heard that. So I am offering Vedic astrological readings, which I just talked about. I'm offering a new kind of astrological reading, very short, but it's North Star shamanic astrological readings, which look at things from an even higher level and tell you what you're doing from one year to the next, what the general energetic focus is from one year to the next. It tells you what world you're working with, and that will add another layer to your reading. So I'm offering those. I'm offering the 9 world shamanic rune readings, which I have found now I'm really loving them, and they're really indispensable. You put all 3 of those together and you've got, what more could you need? You've got some really powerful stuff. And I am creating a package called the Transformation Package where I am giving all of those out. Now it's going to have the whole package is going to take at least, it's going to take 2 phone calls. It's going to take anywhere from 1.5 to 2 hours to do the whole thing. So, but I'm because it's summertime and things are slowing down, and I know people are out and about. My business starts to slow, so I want to keep my business up. So I'm offering this package as well. So let me see if I've got all of the links for that, and I do. So here are all the links for that. So watch that and take down the URLs for that if you want to take advantage of any of those, including the advanced shamanism courses. Okay, so that's my little ad blurb there for you. So those are my ads. So let's see what else. I'll double check to see if there's any last minute questions from anybody. Let's see. Kiwi fruits. Somebody already asked that question, but I'm happy to answer it. How do you manage keeping your energy through the day? How do you jeep energy vampires at bat? I think you're trying to say, how do you keep energy vampires at bay? Those are two questions. First one, how do you manage keeping your energy through the day? You know, I'd have to talk with you to find out why you're losing your energy. You know, that's why people take those energy drinks and the caffeine and the coffee, and they smoke cigarettes and all that, which actually drains you of energy but stimulates you. So the short answer is getting yourself emotionally, getting the three selves aligned will help you. If you're needing actual energy, my suggestion would be to do some energy practice. And while I'm on it, I can do a blurb for that. There's one of my teachings called Celestial Qigong. It's the most powerful energy practice that I have. This is the DVD for it. And you can get that. Go to michaelwilliamdenny.com. No, those are my books. Go on to Amazon and type in Celestial Qigong or type in Michael William Denny and it should come up. But to answer your question, again, not knowing what is causing that, you know, it's hard for me to say. There could be a lot of things. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be energetic, it could be psychological. I would need to talk with you. So if you want to have a session with me, you can email me at info@thundershamanism.com and tell me who you are and ask, you know, and you're inquiring about a session, and I'll let you know how we could go about doing that. The second question you ask is, how do you keep energy vampires at bay? Now, I've already explained to that. Now, you got kind of a Freudian slip there where you said, how do you keep energy vampires at bat? Like, how do you keep them swinging at your head and smashing you over the head? And unconsciously, that means that you are attracting people that are taking your energy. So I already answered that. If you go back and watch it after this is archived, I go into detail. But bottom line is this, is that if there are energy vampires in your life, it's because you have attracted them. And if you've attracted them, here's the hard part. Here's the part you're not going to want to hear. If you've attracted energy vampires in your life, it means that you have an unconscious, meaning you're not aware of it. You have an unconscious agenda to distract yourself from something else in your life. And that could be as simple as going after your true soul desire. Most of us, what we're resisting the most is being our true self. You know, we're not afraid of failure. We're afraid of success. So again, I don't know you, but most of the time that's what's going on. So if you have energy vampires in your life, you've attracted them, and they see that you have made a contract with them to have them steal your energy. This is the same with demon possession. This is the same when you have, even if it's codependent relationships, which is what this is. You're talking about codependent relationships. It means that you have attracted these people in your life and that they see that you're a victim, and they are going to victimize you by taking your energy. But you started the ball rolling. So the short answer is you make the decision that you are not going to be a victim. And that doesn't mean you do anything. You don't yell and scream. You don't tell them, get away, you're an energy vampire. You make the decision within yourself that, you know what, I don't want this chaos in my life. And so I'm just not going to let them steal my energy. And when they come into your aura and they start doing whatever it is that they do, you will now see that you interact with them and you let them do it. And once you make the decision to stop doing that, they'll go away. Another easy way to do it is to work with the Thurisaj rune. I have a Thurisaj meditation. If you look at my videos, there's a Thurisaj mudra meditation. But even just chanting Thurisaj or wearing Thurisaj, the thirst rune. That is a rune of powerful getting your boundaries in order, of protecting you. So anybody listening, if you have boundary issues, chant 30 size, and that'll drive people away. But it will also force you to take responsibility for the ways in which you allow people to take advantage of you and why. Here's the other thing that I mentioned that you may not be aware of. If you ever have any kind of codependent relationship, it means that on an unconscious level, you have an agenda as well. That there's something you want from them. And so you make an energetic exchange. And the exchange is, okay, I'll let you steal my energy, but then I want you to promise to give me this, whether it's love or attention or something. And they may not fulfill that, but that's the contract. You have to understand that nothing happens, that the universe is an energy exchange. Everything is an energy exchange. So if bad stuff is happening, it means that you have an energy exchange going on with that. And that means there's something that you want. It's impossible to be in a codependent relationship without wanting something from them. Here's something interesting. I don't know if this is the case for you, Kiwi Fruits, but I know for a fact that there are people out there who talk about there are energy vampires, or there are codependent people or abusive people. You talk to those other people and they'll say the same thing about, man, that person is constantly in my face trying to tell me how I owe them this and I owe them that, and I'm not. And so sometimes we don't realize that we have this two-way thing where we're not owning up to what it is we really want from somebody else. And so then we end up bringing people into our lives who aren't owning up to what they want. And now you've got this codependence where everybody's taking from each other, and there's this. Anyway, but the bottom line is it's a contract. And when you understand that and take responsibility for all of your contracts, then you can make decisions. I talk about that a lot. You know, people don't get my time unless they pay me for it, which is because the most important thing in my life is my time. I want to surf. I want to take a nap when I want to take it. I want to keep myself healthy. I want to make sure I get 8 hours of rest. I want to have the money to buy all the things that I want. I'm not super rich, but you get what I'm saying. I make a contract with the whole world. My focus is me, and I never let anything get in the way of that. In order for me to have that, I have to own up what it is I want from other people. And I have to be honest when I'm wanting something from somebody and I'm either not telling them that I want that, or I'm not owning up to myself that I'm wanting to do that. So anyway, that was a long answer to your question. Renee Michelle, boundaries helped me, celestial qigong, massive yoga, vitamin B shots, plus I'm going after my soul desires, and yes, my chanting that Michael gave me in my Vedic reading. So I guess she's responding to how she keeps her energy up. So I'm glad I was a part of that. Grace Bears, Kiwi Fruits, I recommend the Vedic astrological reading from him, meaning me. It helps tremendously with energy levels. And that's why it helps, because mantra, by the way, in case you don't know, the whole purpose of mantra is to realign the unconscious. As the Huna guy would say, it will defrag the data in your hard drive. That's all that mantra does. And whenever you align all yourself on an unconscious level, all of a sudden you're not putting energy into places. You're not, having your energy go in places that don't give back to you. You're able to then defend your boundaries and then have healthy coexisting contracts energetically with people in life and with yourself. That's what mantra does. That's the whole point. And that's why it's important to have not just any mantra, but the mantra that is aligned to you based on your chart. A lot of mantras out there. There are some very good all-purpose mantras like Om Namah Shivaya. Anybody who does that, it will help you. But you're going to watch me now take a call. I'm going to have to hang up here as I take a call. Okay, so I'm going to sign off now. That's it for now, guys. Until next time, remember that you are in control of everything. All right, so that's it. Sorry, I got to go. Bye.